So, Preston, you hit me up to talk about the Barry finale and how much you fucking hated the hell out of it. And I just finished it. I just finished the finale. I binged the entire last season today. And I gotta say, it was okay. It was fine. But you really hated it.
So here's your problem. This is ridiculous. Is that you have just watched the 4th season and you haven't seen really seasons 1 to 3.
I feel like I have. I feel like the spirit of 1, 2, and 3 is inside me as I watched the recaps from a YouTuber who does very good recaps. He's very good at his job at recapping. I feel like I watched every episode.
Well, so keep in mind, you know, there's a lot of these things. One, binging also like is going to change your experience. But so even take what I'm saying like a difference, like the first 3 seasons, like take somebody like a character like Hank. Now, so you know the scene of him opening the boxes and how ridiculous like and funny that was.
Even in death, he's still a fox. Yeah, I love that. That was great.
Yeah.
Well,
imagine 3 seasons of like him like being ridiculous, you know, and then like the darkness of like Hank and Cristobal like comes all at once at the end. And it's not that was one of the better parts of the 4th season, but I'm just saying that like put in your mindset that you've like before you see the downfall of Hank and Cristobal and you're like, "Oh, I really like those characters." You have to like watching 3 seasons of them first, you know.
I know.
Cristobal comes in much later, you know. So, but this is important because Fugues, for example, is a very different character in season 4 than he is in the first 3 seasons. You know, like Fugues.
Wait, you call him Fugues? I thought it was Fuchs.
Fuchs?
Yeah,
Fuchs?
Yeah, Fuchs. I thought that's what it was. Yeah,
maybe it's Fuchs. Whatever. Really? Oh, Fuchs.
I swear it is. You're gonna look it up?
Yeah. Now it's Fuchs. Okay, fine. Fuchs. It's a weird name, you know.
Yes.
So like Fuchs is ridiculous. Like he's a ridiculous character, and so for him to become this like gang leader is a ridiculous shift and change in his character. So you have to understand like what a pathetic piece of crap he was for the first 3 seasons. And so like when that shift happens, it's like big and shocking because it's a complete reversal of his character. You know, so there's little things like this, but where you're just binging season 4, you're not quite going to get it.
I will say though, I liked season 4. I thought it was funny. I love the humor. The humor is great, and I eventually I will go back and watch the first 3 seasons. But I know you wanted to talk about the season 4 finale.
Well, the humor goes down like every season.
What?
The first season's the funniest. The second season is the second funniest. The third season the third funniest, and the fourth season the fourth funniest. So the show gets darker as time goes on.
That reminds me of the Orville. The Orville with Seth MacFarlane did the same thing. The first season is the funniest, and it goes down and gets more serious. Yeah. That's interesting you say that. Yeah. I will eventually go back and watch the first 3 seasons, but like I said, I just wanted to binge so I can know what you're talking about.
But this gets into like some fundamental things on like why I think season 4 really missed the mark. And in some ways it's similar to Game of Thrones season 8. And that, so you've got the main characters, you've got Barry, you've got Sally, you've got Fuchs, you've got Hank, and you've got Kusanov, right? And, Hank and Fuchs are kind of from different worlds, and they cross through Barry, and because Barry is, you know, being used is being hired as a hitman occasionally by Hank, and Fuchs is like Barry's handler. So, but the thing is like Fuchs and Hank don't really have a relationship. And so all of a sudden in the 4th season, kind of out of nowhere, Hank and Fuchs are really intertwined. And for some reason, for no reason at all, Fuchs leaves prison and is obsessed with making Hank face the fact that he killed Cristobal. You know? So do you understand? Like, it's just kind of out from left field. Like, why would Fuchs, this guy who is a pathetic, like, piece of crap, who is obsessed with Barry. Like, why would he suddenly be interested in Hank's mindset? Why would he care?
I think he explains it is because when he was in prison getting the crap beat out of him day after day, he came to this like revelation. If he just admitted like who he was instead of pretending to be someone else, then he like if Hank did that, then Hank would find the relief that he found. And he has found a new, this is what I took away from it. Fuchs has a newfound dislike and disgust with people who were like him, which he feels Hank is now like him. He wants Hank to just admit what he admitted and become a better person. That's what I got from it.
I mean, I understand that speech and I understand that perspective, but it's from nowhere. Like, why would Fuchs care? Why isn't he, like, all of the people in his gang also are tough guys who are lying to themselves in the exact same way Hank is. If this idea that they're all pieces of crap, like, why isn't he confronting people in his gang? It's from nowhere that he all of a sudden is trying to get in Hank's face. Now, that's not even like the worst aspect of the season, because like the worst stuff has to do with like Kusanao and Sally. But it's just one of these things where I'm just baffled. I'm watching it. I'm just like, why is Fuchs doing this? And keep in mind, the first time Fuchs like makes Hank upset, he acts like it's a mistake. Like he just brought something up randomly. And then later he completely does it intentionally. And so you're like, well, which is it? Was it a mistake or was it intentional? You know, there's little things like that where there's like a disconnect between the writers of each episode. Like, what is Fuchs trying to do? Why is he obsessed with Hank? Like, why? Like, you know, there's one of those like lame, all the characters like shoot each other at the end kind of Quentin Tarantino.
Great scene, by the way. End. Very well done. Holy shit. Like, just very well done.
The fight, well, there's some much better, like, there's like the fight choreography in the first few seasons is great. It's like Daredevil in the hallway kind of stuff, you know. There's a lot of really great action scenes in the previous seasons, and the last scene was fine choreographed, but it actually doesn't compare to what was before. Yeah, there was some pretty intense stuff, but you know, like I always thought it's quite lazy for all the characters to just go in one place and like kill each other. It's all kind of silly.
Well, to Fuchs being obsessed with Hank, it really was the writers wanting to give Hank another person to bounce off of after they killed Cristobal.
Yes, absolutely. And Fuchs for something to do, because they have nothing to do with Fuchs. Fuchs, like, you know, Fuchs is a guy whose main role through the entire show is he's obsessed with Barry and being Barry's father figure. And when Barry chooses a new father figure, Kusanao, like, Fuchs becomes very upset about that. And so Hank has nothing to do with like Fuchs, like, character up until that point. Cause he has, you know, Hank worships Barry as, I think Barry's super cool and I want to be like Barry. But then Hank becomes disillusioned with Barry kind of in the middle of the series. So he doesn't have the same sort of like, you know, obsession that Fuchs does, where Fuchs never loses his obsession with Barry. Each of them, you know, each character is obsessed with Barry or connected with Barry in their own way. And Barry represents thematically like toxic masculinity, like everything wrong with like, you know, male culture, it being violent and whatever, you know, and thinking that violence makes you a man. Right. And so like Hank in a cool bro sense, is fascinated with Hank. And then Fuchs in a father figure sense, like, becomes obsessed with Barry. And then Kusanao, also in a father figure sense, is connected with Barry, but more in the sense that, like, you know, how it makes him feel good. And because Kusanao is a very kind of self-centered character, and not a bad person, just self-centered. And then Sally, in kind of an abusive sense, like why she connects to Barry, because, you know, she ends up attracted to abusive men, you know, toxic men. So like that's kind of how all the characters like relate to this like symbol, you know, because that's all Barry is. Barry is this like symbol of toxic masculinity.
Yeah, he's not the typical toxic masculinity like figure that you kind of picture in your head. You kind of picture like that wife beater, like dirty redneck-ish type of dude that's backwards. Barry's kind of like somewhat proper, nerdy, kind of. He's, you know, like looking at him, he looks like a normal guy, but.
Right, and he's a sociopath, and he doesn't know how to act, and he keeps going to other people, seeking direction on how to act, and so like he finds Fuchs, and like Fuchs sends him in the wrong direction, and then he finds Kusanao, and he thinks like maybe Kusanao can send him in a better direction, but in the end, like Barry is a irredeemable piece of crap, and cannot be directed anywhere because he's psychotic, but.
Is that what you didn't like about the finale? Is that no one got redemption? Everyone's still terrible and awful?
So my biggest problem, number one problem with the ending that I think is unforgivable is why would Sally let Kusanao rot in jail? It makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to me, like logically, thematically, anything. Like, because if her whole plot, even though she's still kind of unhappy at the end, her whole plot is like liberation from the abusive man, you know? And like, there's even that moment where she gets asked on a date and she's like, no, I don't want to go on a date because she wants to go it alone. You know, she wants to be strong by herself. You know, why would this character, and if we're supposed to somehow feel that like her character is of some worth, like why would she let Kusanao rot in jail? Like why wouldn't the cops have talked to her? And why wouldn't she have like told them everything? You know, like it's so illogical to me that Kusanao would go to jail for the murder of Janice and Barry based on the events that happened in this, especially with Sally existing. And Sally, like, just a few scenes before was like, you need to turn yourself in because Kusanao is going to spend his life in jail. Like she directly had a motivation to keep Kusanao out of jail. She didn't want him to go to jail. She tried to convince Barry not to go to LA to kill him. It's like she cares about Kusanao. So why would she let him rot in jail? Why wouldn't she testify? Why wouldn't the cops just go to her and question her? It made no sense.
I think even if the cops did go to her and question her, it wouldn't have mattered because of the money, the $250,000. That's still think that he has something to do with Janice's murder. And Barry, that's
there's no possible way you would ever convict somebody off of like some sort of weird, harebrained like $250,000 like thing, like which they never explained. They're like, oh, there was the $250,000 drug money. And how does that implicate Kusanao in Janice's murder? How does that implicate Barry? Like, and how does it implicate Kusanao in Barry's murder? Like Barry told everyone that he was going to kill Kusanao. He has a stash of weapons in his car. He's a serial killer. He broke out of prison with a trail of bodies. And yet somehow they call Kusanao shooting him in his own house murder. Like you wouldn't call that self-defense or manslaughter at least.
I agree with you, but isn't that the irony of the whole finale is that the only person that really could have saved Kusanao from spending time in jail would have been Barry, but he kills Barry. They were trying
to make that irony. They were pushing it, and it doesn't make any sense because everybody can keep Kusanao. Like at the end, according to that movie, which the movie is whatever, not truth, but like they pinned like an entire drug ring on Kusanao, and it's very clear that Kusanao wasn't in all of these places. It's very clear like he wasn't connected to Hank. Like, not to mention, like, not all of Hank's men died. You could see some of them still alive and some of Fuchs's men still alive. Like, they have a video that he walks into a Walmart and buys a million weapons that would still be in his car. Like Barry. Like, there's so many things that would clearly show that Barry is a killer. Like he had a trail of bodies when he broke out of prison. Like it's just.
I do agree with you that there does feel like there's a scene missing of specifically with Sally being questioned by the FBI. So like I get it. Like I see what you mean by that, but it also feels as though they probably wanted to wrap it up and go home.
Yeah, very clearly they wanted to wrap it up and go home. Like that's the thing is, so the show was fine at 3 seasons. The ending of season 3 is a fine ending for the season, for the series. Like it could have just ended at season 3 and no more. And that would have been a great show. And then they made this season 4, which made no sense. And it's like great. And so my wife, I had this argument with my wife because she was like, ugh, whatever. It was fine, you know, like, because she was playing devil's advocate. And I was like, how? And she's like, the whole show, the cops and police were incompetent. So we just have to assume that they're incompetent again. I was like, no, but it's so beyond unbelievable. Like you can't pin a murder on Kusanov based on like what was presented. Like what? Like $250,000? Like that's it? Like, and who, like what's your testimony on that? Like, is his son going to testify against his own father that he received $250,000? And how do you know it's drug money? Because that drug money was based on the testimony of Barry, who's dead, you know, and Barry tortured in a garage, completely inadmissible. Like there's no way that you'd ever in a million years put Kusino away. Like it's so unbelievable. Not to mention Sally would just say no. Like Barry's a fucking murderer maniac. Like that's it.
Why would they take her word for anything? She's an alcoholic, insane person who ran away with a fugitive and essentially helped keep his identity.
There's no other word to take. Like who is testifying against Kusanov?
It reminds me of those scenes in The Wire where they wanted to pin the murder on anybody just to get the killer, even if the killer was like
right.
Not the guy.
Mean, you could try to push it another way and be like, Kusanov felt so guilty that he confessed to a bunch of crimes that he didn't do because he was like screwed up in his head. And it's like, should have showed that scene. Like the thing is like,
I agree. Yeah,
you know, like
missing.
Again, like it's often not about, and I make this analogy all the time. It's often not about where the pieces end up, but you have to show like how the pieces might go that way. You have to hint at it in some way. Like I say, you can't just come back the next episode with Chandler married to Phoebe and everybody being like, well, you know, that's logical. Like people get divorced all the time and people get remarried all the time and people get remarried to friends all the time. What are you talking about? How many thousands of people, like, or, you know, millions of people got divorced and then remarried someone else? It's completely logical that Chandler would divorce Monica and marry Phoebe. You can just completely have that, like, you know, the episode before the finale. Or would everyone go, man, that's fucking horrible storytelling? That's the situation with like Kusanov going to jail. Like you presented me some pieces and you're like, and you know, step 1, collect underpants. Step 2, question mark. Step 3, Kusanov's in jail. It's so fucking stupid. Like it makes no sense. And thematically it makes no sense because I'm supposed to somehow value like the Sally liberation plot. But if Sally let Kusanov sit in jail, there's no value to her character. There's no value to her. She let an innocent person go to jail when she could just go to the cops and be like, excuse me, this and this happened. Plus her whole thing was like, Barry, you need to take responsibility for your actions. What responsibility did she take? Like, she could have like clearly just gone to the cops and explained everything and Kusanov wouldn't be in jail. So like, this is why I say it like thematically just falls apart. Like it's so bad. It makes me so angry that they would try to pull that and somehow like think that like we all watch enough cop dramas and crime dramas to know how the legal system works, like in a vague sense, you know, like Kusanov wouldn't be in jail. And like, there's other weird things that bug me. Like, so the show is about a lot of weird coincidences, and a lot of weird coincidences happen throughout the show, but it's a little odd that the driving of the plot post time jump is 3 big coincidences happening all at once. Coincidence 1, they're making a movie that takes Kusanao out of hiding. Coincidence 2, Fuchs gets released from jail. And coincidence 3, Sally has an incident at work that causes her to get attacked. And had only 2 of the 3 of those events happen, or none of them happen all at once, the events wouldn't have played out the way they did. Like, it was very clear that they needed all of the characters out again to interact, and they couldn't think of anything better. So it was like, big coincidence, and that just bugged me.
I'm confused on one thing. Kusanao has a conversation with his son. And he's like, yeah, call me. Is it still the same number? No, I changed it. How does Sally know the new number?
Oh, there's a lot of those things. Actually, my wife made the same question. She's like, my wife said the exact same thing. And I was like, oh, different writer.
Also, Barry's he's a wanted man, so he's going to LA with no disguise. No, he didn't even grow a beard, nothing. Or...
How did he even get on a plane? There's so many, or did he drive the whole way?
I'm assuming they were like out in Nevada or Utah desert or some shit.
Well, they said they moved around. So the timeline doesn't really make sense because they say Kusanao's been gone for 8 years, but their son is 10, which means they'd be gone for 11 years. That kid is not 7, it's so weird. And then how did she have him? Did she not go to the hospital?
When I first saw the flash forward, I thought it was a dream or something. I'm like, oh, this is nice. Yeah. But as it continued, I'm like, no, this is very sad. And oh no, this is a time skip. Oh no. Right.
Obviously you're supposed to be confused because his Barry's happy place was the same vision of so you're supposed to be disoriented by it. But it's just the logic of how are they living on a middle of America waitress salary, or did he have a bunch of drug money with him?
I would assume he had some money stashed away
that he brought or something, but it's just, they're moving around and they never get caught. And I don't know, somehow she had that baby and they weren't caught, and somehow they have IDs or something,
And for 8 years, I guess this was eating away at her all this time until this one time when Fuchs was getting out of jail and Kusanao came back. This is when she really felt as though she had to turn herself in. This one moment. There's no other moment in the past 8 years. This one moment. I know what you mean by the coincidences, yeah. I kind of wish we got to see more of their relationship post-time skip, because it's mostly focusing on Barry and his kid. Which, okay.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And it's kind of all weird. I don't even understand. In one scene, she's numb and has no interest in raising kids, and then another scene, she's in the bathtub, holding him, and then the kid. On the one hand, Barry seems very active in trying to raise his kid, but then on the phone, he mentions how he's thinking about getting into addition and multiplication with him. He's 2 + 2. And it's your kid is 10. He doesn't know 2 + 2. There's a lot of just crazy stuff that just doesn't make sense. And just the odd conveniences of the guy locking him in the garage, and then him waking up and finding the knife and getting out.
Well, what is up? So this guy has special forces trainings, super duper special forces training, where he can brainwash some people, that one reporter guy where he gives him amnesia and makes him speak German. What?
He's so freaking good at his job. He can torture people to do whatever, but at the same time, he's so stupid that one single mention of $250,000 makes him undo all of the other evidence that clearly shows that Barry killed Janice. Because of, and it's not even an explanation. How does the $250,000 relate? Like, how does that relate to like Barry killing Janice? And who shot Janice? Because at one point they're like, oh, but he manipulated Barry to do it. But then in the movie, it actually shows like Kusanov shooting her himself and all sorts of weird stuff. And like Barry getting buried at Arlington, and it's like, no, that also wouldn't happen. Like, he very clearly left a trail of bodies when he broke out of prison and was on the run for 10 years. Like, and it's like, I don't even know what kind of message they're saying. Cause on the one, are they saying like what? Like, oh, cause Hollywood would just screw it up. Like, okay.
Yeah, that's the implication I got.
And it's supposed to, like, if it's supposed to be an indictment of the Hollywood system and the police system, and it's supposed to be some sort of like, you know, criticism of the system, but it's not really a criticism of the system. It's criticism of individuals. Like, Janice's dad was nuts, and he invented the whole story by himself to bring down Kusanov. Like, Sally was crazy enough not to testify for you know, on behalf of Kusanov, weirdly. Like, it's not, there isn't really a problem with the system. The problem was with these individuals, like these very bad individuals. The problem is, like, it's not even a criticism of the system. Like, they're not really explaining what Hollywood is doing wrong or what the police are doing wrong. They're just pointing out that these systems are filled with assholes. So I don't even know what the message is, you know? And I'm sure, like, you know, I'm sure lots of people really loved it and you know, post comments about how wrong I am. But like, it's really, really difficult to get over Sally allowing Kusanov to be in prison. Like, that is unforgivable.
I guess the whole ending theme is like, everyone's an asshole and no one gets a happy ending, with the exception of Fuchs, who kind of just leaves.
Right, kind of weird. Yeah, really.
Yeah,
weird.
like, he just he kind of gets a happy ending, because I'm assuming, like, after he leaves the shootout scene, he goes back to his wife that he has.
Here's the problem with Fuchs, is that they have actually given Fuchs a happy ending a couple times already in the show, and he always ruins it. Right? So, like, there's a scene where, like, he's taken out because he knows stuff and he can testify about what Barry's done, and Barry's done some contract killing for the Chechnys. Like, they take him to Chechnya and they give him a house in Chechnya with this like beautiful woman, and he's in the beautiful mountains of Chechnya, and like, you think he'd be happy there because he's like, and he's just like, he just is so angry at Barry, he returns to America to like make him pay. And you're like, why would you do that? You know, or like, you know, then he gets out of prison and he's got this powerful gang and he's living in this like beautiful house and he's got his new girlfriend, and he decides to like screw it up again. Like, you know, Fuchs refuses to be happy, which is kind of his character. So like, Fuchs leaving at the end, I understand that's how they set it up. Like, and then he walks off for a happy life, and it's like,
or so you think.
He's Fuchs.
Yeah, he's
Fuchs. He'll somehow screw it up. But
I have to say, I love that actor, Stephen Root. He was in News Radio, and I'm so glad he's the stapler guy in Office Space. Yeah, and I'm so glad he's continuously getting work. I love the actor, and honestly,
I mean, he's really good. He's really good in dramatic, and he's really good in comic. So it's just
yeah. I would love to see a Fuchs spin-off where every episode something good happens, and he just manages to fuck it up for himself. Maybe that's what they're going for. Maybe that's why he got away scot-free.
So there is some background to it. So the show is created by a guy named Alec Berg and Bill Hader. And Alec Berg, if you look at the writing, wasn't given a writing credit on any of the scripts for season 4.
Oh.
And yeah. So I'm thinking that maybe, yeah, he by the way has done other things like, he was a writer for Eurotrip. He was a writer for Late Night with Conan O'Brien. He was a writer for Curb Your Enthusiasm. He was a writer for Silicon Valley. He's done a lot of, he was a writer on Seinfeld. He's done a lot of comic writing and stuff. But I have a feeling that maybe he was the genius behind the show, and without him, it fell apart. not that there weren't really funny scenes in season 4, but so I think the comic writing is still there. I think Bill Hader might be funny, but I don't think Bill Hader can structure a story, and I think that was all Alec Berg, and that was the problem.
He did, like, Bill Hader has been directing a lot of the episodes, and even Alec Berg came in to direct some of the episodes for season 3, and I'm looking at it here, but Alec Berg it's almost like he's completely gone from season 4 altogether, and it's all Bill Hader. Yeah, like, Bill Hader wrote and directed episode 1, he directed episode 2, he directed every single one. He only wrote 1, 5, and 8, the last one.
That's my little conspiracy theory, is that Alec Berg was the real genius behind it, seasons 1 through 3, and then when he was not as involved, the whole thing fell apart, would be my guess. And that Bill Hader, not so.
So good. Right here, the agent, because you were confused about this, the agent who talked to Gene turns out to be an actor who leads Gene to Jim, Leo, and the district attorney, all of whom are now convinced that Gene was dealing with the Chechens and manipulated Barry into killing Janice to stop her investigation. So they all think that he was profiting from the drug money and that Janice got a little too close, so he was able to use Barry to kill her off.
Yeah. Do you think that in any world, like, a theory that, like, broad and harebrained could, like, convict somebody of and put somebody in prison for life, like, on double murder? You know, like, no eyewitness testimonies, like, no DNA evidence, no weapon. Like, that's the thing, is, like, Kusanov doesn't even own a weapon. These are all, like, Barry's weapons, you know, like it's when the other guy has a car filled with guns, like, it's just,
well, just because Bill Hader's Barry has a car filled with guns doesn't mean he's the mastermind behind everything. They're looking for the mastermind, and they're trying to pin it on Gene.
Yeah, but they will. There was also, by the way, if they're linking everything to the Chechens, like, Hank's. Like, that same night, Hank's entire, like, business gets gunned down by Fuchs's, like, people. And they already put the Raven in jail for 10 years. So, like, how, Fuchs, I mean, when I say the Raven, like, how would they somehow think, like, Kusanov is like the leader of all of that, or involved? Like, it's so silly. Like, it's just, it's the loosest, most random thing that you can somehow think that you could, like, you know, spin an entire murder conviction about. Like, no, you couldn't. Especially considering it was making national news and was what eventually became this, like, movie. Like, it would have all this attention. You know, it can't be like, and now keep in mind, in America, like, famously, you've got, you know, people going to prison for stuff they didn't do, but it tends to be like some nobody that no one's ever heard of, and it doesn't make any news. You know, it's some you know, 18-year-old black kid from Baltimore who somebody says, yeah, it was that kid, and they go, okay, and then, you know, they plant some evidence, and then they put him in prison, you know, or whatever, you know, that kind of stuff. That wouldn't be going on with Kusanov. Like, plus, like, the timing, like, what they were getting Kusanov, like, first of all, there's also freaking entrapment and stuff like that was clearly part of that whole movie deal thing. But, like, how would the DA, Like, why would they go in prison, like on TV so quickly? Like, everything happened so fast. It was like all in an afternoon. Like, it was so ridiculous.
It's almost like HBO was hurrying Bill Hader out the door. Like, come on, yeah, wrap it up.
It was just so poorly thought out. So poorly thought out. Like, one person just be like, excuse me, like, maybe we should put some days in between these events, like.
There was definitely a couple of scenes missing. I agree with you on that. But do you have any more complaints? Because you were saying that this is Game of Thrones season 8 level bad on Twitter. I'm pretty sure on Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely. That. I would agree.
And
I mean,
what did you say?
The thing is, you haven't seen. I said it was worse than season 8.
Finished Barry. Yeah. Finale and last season were atrocious. Worst final season and finale of any show I remember. Worse than Game of Thrones. How I Met Your Mother. Come on. And Battlestar. Really, Battlestar. Writing failed in every level. Characters, themes, logic. It's like they were trying to make it bad. 10-year-old would have done better.
Yes. Yeah.
By the way, a lot of shows are ending lately. Barry, Succession, Ted Lasso just wrapped up.
Oh, there's no more Ted Lasso? Okay.
No, it just wrapped up, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, I know Succession ended. But people, I didn't watch it. I only watched the first season of Succession. I guess people were fairly happy with it.
Very happy with it.
I have been checking on the, I went on the Barry Reddit, and the last season, and especially the last episode, is very divisive. Very divisive. Yeah. Some people defend it. They're like, no, this is great. It's perfect. And then some people are like, no, this is the worst piece of crap I've ever seen. It's like one or the other. Like, no one has a neutral opinion on it. Except for my wife. Who is just like, whatever. I don't care. It was fine. She really liked season 1 of Barry and thought the rest was just meh. And so she was like, I don't know. I agree that season 1 was the best, but I thought seasons 2 and 3 were strong,
So I guess what you're trying to say through all of this, Preston, is that whenever a new show is born, the gods flip a coin to see if the ending will be shit or not.
Yeah, pretty much. Mm-hmm. I mean, most of the time, most shows don't get an ending. So,
true.
There's that. But, we'll never. There was no ending to My Name is Earl or whatever. I understand. He never completes his list or. So, but in this case, like, this had an ending, and then they kept going and had a second ending, and they didn't need to do that because the ending for season 3 like really works.
Do you mind if we wrap it up here?
Sounds good.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us. As always, we'll see you all next time. Have a good one.